When we think about the history of Great Britain, our minds usually jump to books, museums, maybe some dusty old documents. But what if I told you the biggest, most detailed history book of all is the land itself? Let's dig in, because this is a story that's literally written into the ground we walk on.
I mean, just look at this. It might seem like a peaceful, typical English scene, right? But every single field, every little lump and bump in the ground, it all carries the fingerprints of Britain's past. We're talking everything from ancient monuments to Roman cities and Norman castles.
So, that's the big question we're tackling today. What are these stories? We're about to go on a journey through deep time, peeling back the layers of the landscape one by one to see what we can find.
Okay, so our story starts way, way back, a time when Britain wasn't even an island. We've got to rewind to the end of the last ice age, when the map of this part of the world looked completely different.
Now this is incredible. You're looking at a lost world. Where the North Sea is today, there used to be this massive, low-lying plain known as Doggerland. It was roamed by huge herds of wild animals, and following them were the very first people to come back after the ice melted away. These were the Mesolithic hunter-gatherers.
But here's the thing. These early people, they lived really lightly on the land. They were always on the move, following the herds, following the seasons. So archaeologically, they left behind almost nothing. Maybe a discarded flint tool here, the faint remains of a campsite there. Theirs is the very first, almost invisible layer in our story.
But then, around 6,000 years ago, everything changes. Something truly revolutionary arrives from the continent, a new way of life that is going to completely reshape the landscape forever. And that thing, it was farming.
This timeline really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Look at that huge gap between the first hunter-gatherers showing up and the start of farming. But once farming kicks in, things start to speed up. People begin to build permanent homes, and eventually these absolutely massive monuments.
And this just shows you what a game changer farming was. It meant people could finally settle down in one place. You get these incredible villages, like Scarborough in Scotland, which is just amazingly well preserved. But it's more than that. Farming allows communities to get organized on a huge scale, to work together to build unbelievable places like Stonehenge. Civilization was starting to leave its first big, permanent marks.
All right, so the next great layer gets added when the outside world comes crashing in. For thousands of years, Britain was basically on the far edge of the known world. But in AD 43, that changes forever. The Roman Empire invades, and this remote island is suddenly connected to a vast, international superpower.
I mean, the Roman impact was just massive. They brought totally new concepts, like planned towns and cities. They built this incredible network of long, straight roads. They introduced new architecture, new laws, new everything. It was a whole new way of life that lasted for almost 400 years.
Places like these baths at Aquae Sulis, which we now call Bath, show you just how sophisticated Roman Britain was. This wasn't some backwater military outpost. It was a thriving province where citizens enjoyed all the comforts of Roman life. It was a whole new world for the people here.
So, what happens after the Romans pack up and leave around AD 410? Well, Britain kind of splinters apart again. This next period is all about new waves of people arriving, new kingdoms being born, and, you guessed it, another epic, landscape-changing conquest.
So next you have Germanic peoples, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes. They come over and they start to form their own kingdoms, like Wessex and Mercia. And from them, we get something absolutely fundamental, the beginnings of the English language. So this wasn't some dark age. It was a really important period of cultural creation.
And then comes 1066. The Norman conquest was a seismic shock to the system. It completely replaced the old ruling class, brought in the feudal system, and stamped a brand new mark of authority all over the landscape: the stone castle. Places like the Tower of London were basically giant symbols of a new, unstoppable power. So we've seen all these different layers of history, right? The hunter-gatherers, the first farmers, the Romans, the Normans. But what if we could find them all stacked up in one single place? Well, it turns out we can. Let's zoom in on one city where this entire story is piled right on top of itself: St. Albans.
St. Albans is just extraordinary. Before the Romans even showed up, it was a big Iron Age tribal capital called Verlamion. Then the Romans build one of their most important cities in Britain, Verulamium, right there. Later, it becomes the site of a shrine to Britain's first Christian martyr, and from that grows the modern city we see today. It's the perfect historical sandwich.
And this city was right at the heart of one of the most violent, dramatic events in Roman Britain. Around AD 60, the horrifying treatment of Boudica, the queen of the Iceni tribe, sparked a massive, bloody rebellion that set the province on fire.
So the rebels' first target was Camalodunum, or modern-day Colchester. It was a real symbol of Roman oppression, a place for retired soldiers, and home to a huge temple for the emperor. Boudica's army absolutely annihilated it. And the incredible thing is, archaeologists digging there today can find a thick black layer of ash from that very fire.
Next, they marched on the booming port of Londinium. The Roman governor, realizing he couldn't possibly defend it, made a brutal choice and abandoned the city to its fate. The rebels torched it, leaving behind this deep red and black scar beneath modern London that archaeologists actually call the Boudican destruction layer.
And their final target? Our city, Verulamium. It was seen as a town of collaborators who were friendly with the Romans, so it had to go. It was also destroyed. And just like the historian Tacitus wrote 2,000 years ago, modern digs have found that telltale layer of charcoal confirming its violent end.
So, here's the key point. This destruction layer, it's physical proof. It's a moment of pure violence, a dramatic piece of history preserved in the earth. It's how archaeologists can literally read these epic events right out of the ground.
And as we zoom back out, that's what's so amazing. From the prehistoric stones of Stonehenge, to the Roman roads that still form the basis of our modern ones, to the Norman castles that still dominate the skyline, nothing was ever really wiped clean. Each new culture just built right on top of the last, creating the complex, layered country we have today.
And really, that's the big idea to take away. The next time you're walking through a park or maybe driving down an old road, just remember, you are moving through time. The story of this island isn't locked away in the past. It's right there, waiting to be read in the world all around you.
Which leaves us with one last thought. Every single place has its own layers, its own story. So what history lies buried where you live?